Avaz.com.
This is the morning brief from the Economic Times, produced in collaboration with Avaz.com.
$45 billion. That's how much online gaming company Roblox was valued at when it debuted on the New York Stock Exchange earlier this month. But Roblox is hardly the only online gaming company grabbing headlines. Closer home, there's a firm looking to script history of its own as the first publicly traded gaming company in India. I'm talking about Nazara Technologies, whose IPO was subscribed 175 times last week. This is a company that's backed by none other than the big bull Rakesh Jhunjhunwala and is expected to be valued at over 3,500 crore when it lists. Now, the online gaming market, whether it's esports or real money gaming, has surged in a year in which many of us were stuck at home and glued to our screens. So the interest in the company is hardly surprising. But then neither is it all smooth sailing in this space, especially with individual states cracking down on real money gaming, which is the most lucrative of these segments. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Nazara story and what its IPO represents for India's rapidly growing online gaming landscape. I'm Indulekha Arvind, and you're listening to the Morning Brief from the Economic Times. Joining me in today's conversation is the man of the moment, Nitish Mittersain, the founder of Nazara Technologies. He started out making a website dedicated to Bollywood content even before he left college, a venture in which late actor Sharma Kapoor had a part to play. And that's something I'm going to be asking him at the end of the episode, so don't go anywhere. He now heads a company which operates in over 60 countries and has a business spanning esports, free-to-play mobile games, gamified early learning, and real money games. Joining us is my colleague Disha Sharma from ET Prime, who's been closely tracking Nazara and the online gaming ecosystem. Nitish, Disha, great to have you both with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Let's dive straight in. Nitish, you would of course initially planned for an IPO in 2018, which didn't quite pan out at that time. And considering the way things are looking, perhaps that turned out to be for the best. What convinced you to go ahead with the listing right now? Was it influenced by the global surge in the popularity of mobile gaming in a pandemic year, for instance?
No, Indulekha, I think in 2018, we did not go ahead with the IPO simply because the market conditions had turned pretty unfavorable by the time we were ready. But I think in the last 3 years since then, both Nazara has accelerated growth, but also the overall landscape in the Indian gaming market has significantly turned positive, with the data costs coming down, the data becoming so much faster, continued penetration of Android smartphones at low cost, which are great gaming devices. I think just the overall tailwinds have become very strong. The pandemic did have some impact in terms of accelerating the overall trend, but the trend is secular. It's not linked to the pandemic in itself. I think we are in the decade of gaming in India. Gaming is going to become a very large revenue generator, perhaps much larger than most other entertainment industries in India. And we are just at the beginning of that trend. So we felt that it was the right time for us to, go to the public, bring a lot more shareholders onto our cap table and jointly create value for everyone involved.
Now, one reason there's been so much interest from retail investors is, of course, the fact that Rakesh Jhunjhunwala is himself an investor and he's in fact holding onto his stock. Could you tell us about how he came to be on board?
Yeah, sure. I think we met Rakeshji through some common contacts in 2018. And what he liked about Nazara was the fact that, one, we had persevered for a very long period of time when the market did not exist and, stayed true to our dream that India will become a large gaming nation. I think the other thing was that he saw that we had been extremely capital efficient. We had raised only 12 crore rupees till 2017 and we had accumulated over 250 crores in profits by, generating business over the last decade or so. So I think he really appreciated that because a lot of tech companies, get into the burn game, and Nazara, he found, was a new media tech company, but with the DNA that he was more comfortable with, strong focus on profitability, tangible businesses, cash flow driven, not chasing vanity metrics. And I think he really liked that. And the third thing was he saw the overall gaming trend that I just spoke about in the next few years, what it could become. And he felt that Nazara could have a good shot at, being a leader in that space. I think these are the three reasons. Rakesh ji has told me why he invested in Nazara.
I read this somewhere, but I'm not sure about its veracity. So, Nitish, perhaps you could enlighten us. Is it also true that Mr. Junjunwala's kids play Nazara's games? Is there a connection there?
I believe yes, young boys and they do play games. I'm not sure about whether they were playing Nazara games or not. But obviously at home, I've got young kids as well, and you see how these, the pickup for gaming is with these young kids. And I think that's what he would have seen also.
Possibly, and with your dominance in the cricket gaming space, that does sound likely. Disha, coming to you, you've written multiple deep dives about Nazara and the space that it operates in. Could you tell us about, what the IPO represents for the Indian online gaming ecosystem as a whole?
Well, I think it does increase the interest in the space. So for gaming as a segment, it's only been mergers and acquisitions, which have been the usual routes for exits for companies and investors. But I think, with this IPO, investors will also look at, a public listing as one of the ways in which they could get returns. And, this comes after a global precedent where, four major companies have gone public. There's Unity, the gaming engine, AppLovin, Roblox, as you mentioned, and Playtika. So I think, it does set a good precedent for Indian companies who would want to explore this option in the future. Plus, this segment itself is actually amalgamation of multiple smaller segments. Actually, Nazara's portfolio is quite a good representative of how big this segment is and how many sub segments it has within itself. So, Nitish, if you could tell us a little about, the kind of acquisitions that you've made and, the rationale behind them.
Yeah, that's something that I was going to come to as well, because you, of course, mopped up a string of acquisitions, particularly over the last few years, which some people have also criticized as a strategy. So as Disha mentioned, if you could just explain that particular playbook.
So just going back to 2015, the landscape in the mobile gaming space in India was rapidly changing. And we had two options. We could enter areas that we were interested to completely in-house organic businesses. But we also saw that in many of the verticals we were interested, there were fantastic teams and some great companies doing some, pioneering work. And we just thought that if there's a way to partner them rather than compete with them, it could do two things. It could, one, help us accelerate our growth of the platform that we wanted to build. And secondly, it could also help us tap into talent in terms of experienced founders and management teams, which otherwise would not be available for us to hire. So I think with these two thoughts, we started what we call the Friends of Nazara Network, where we said we will acquire majority stakes in companies that we are interested in those businesses, and we will work very closely with those teams to build those businesses out. So I think even if you look at globally, a lot of companies, whether it is Tencent, whether it's Electronic Arts, I think growth via acquisitions and integrations is very standard for the gaming business. I don't think it's something new that we are doing. Our approach may be slightly different because it's completely evolved from the India marketplace, which is a bit different from the global gaming space in any case. But I think we are very confident of what we are doing, especially in the last 3-4 years after seeing success in what acquisitions we have done. Many of the acquisitions we've done have grown by 500 to 800% in a very short period of time, 3 years or so, where we can clearly demonstrate the kind of value add Nazara has brought to them. And 1 plus 1 is equal to much more than 3, 4, 5. I think we always aim that can we make it 1 plus 1 equal to 11. And I think that's where the sweet spot for us is and what we're working towards.
Nazara operates in a pretty diverse space, even within online gaming. What would you say are the biggest drivers of its growth?
In terms of growth engines for us today, I think three are of special mention where we are really focused on. One is the gamified early learning space through our Kidopia app, which targets a 2 to 7-year-old segment, provides them with, and healthy entertainment, what I like to call. And that app has done extremely well. We're in the top 5 app in the US now with 300,000 plus paying subscribers. The second space is the esports space, which, as you know, has huge potential not only in India but globally. And we are the market leaders in India with over 90% market share. And we see a lot of potential over there. So that's the second segment we are very excited about. And the third is the sports simulation space, where we own World Cricket Championship, the franchise, which is the most popular cricket game in the world with over 15 million users playing it every month. I think these are the three growth engines in the immediate future. But Nazara has built a very diversified platform. We will continue to do acquisitions. We will continue to, patch them onto our ecosystem and grow together. I think that's really what the vision is.
Disha has, in fact, in her articles, made this comparison to Tencent. But also, Disha, what would you say is your outlook for the sector as a whole? I mean, where do you see the biggest challenge to growth coming from? Will it, for example, be regulations? Because we've already seen some states bringing in bans on real money games.
Before getting into real money games, I talk a little about the long-standing problems of the sector. So it functions a little like how the movie business functions. So you have to keep publishing a lot of games and wait for at least one game to go viral. So like how it happened with Ludo King during the lockdown, it became a cult favorite. So that is the thing. So the shelf life of each of these games is very less, which is why we don't see too many original gaming studios in India. Most of it is mostly IPs acquired from abroad and customized for the Indian audience. So that is one problem when it comes to games built from the ground up in India. Now when it comes to real money games, that is a tough sector to crack anyway. It has very fluid regulations, and the thing with real money games is you don't know if something is legal or not unless somebody files a case against you. So you have to build a product, launch it, and wait for somebody to file a case against you to know that this is going to get into regulatory trouble. Not the best way to launch a gaming product anyway. But that is also the segment with the highest average revenue per user. And in fact, real money games have seen many success stories in India already. There's Dream 11 and Fantasy Sports, and so many card gaming companies already. In fact, a lot of them are profit-making companies, especially Rummy Circle, if we see, has been making profits for a couple of years now. Actually, even Nazara, for that matter, I think has dabbled in your real money gamings before, but mostly overseas. I think its overseas business brought in a lot of revenue until a couple of years ago, but I think Nazara has stayed away from trying this out in India till now. So, Nitish, could you tell me your reasons why you've been apprehensive of launching a real money gaming product in India?
So to give you a perspective, real money gaming today contributes to less than 3% of our overall revenue for the H1 of 21. And we have two products in the real money gaming space today, the Hala Play product, which is in fantasy sports. We have Big Pesa in Kenya. And the reason we've generally been conservative to our approach in RMG is simply because of the reason which is unclarity in regulatory aspects as well as statutory aspects such as taxes, etc. And we as a company see many other growth opportunities. Like I said, we are a diversified platform with multiple opportunities. So we chose to, focus our energies and financial resources in areas where there was lesser of these issues. We are continuing to develop some products in this space, and you will find that if the regulatory areas become clearer, we will increase our focus significantly over here.
But do you think that you're missing out on a lot of revenue because of the same?
Of course, we are. I think there's an early mover advantage that we have obviously missed, whether it comes in fantasy sports or rummy or poker. But Disha, the fact is, Nazara has always been conservative in its approach. That is our DNA. That is what we do. And our rule of thumb is very simple. We don't do anything that we would lose our night's sleep on. So we may miss few opportunities, but we are okay with that.
Fair enough. Nitish, could you tell us what the road ahead looks like for Nazara? I mean, where do you see the biggest growth coming from, and what's the kind of scaling up that we can see from the company going forward?
I can't share specific numbers right now because I'm not allowed to do forward guidance.
Sure.
But I think you just need to step back and see the gaming industry where it is in India today. You're already on the mobile phone among the top two, I think, downloads in the world. but in terms of monetization, is still far behind. But I think Indian consumers are starting to see value in gaming, the interactivity, the social aspects that it offers. And as the game design, especially with local content, improves, I think you will see a lot more monetization happen. So we're just a little bit behind the curve on monetization, but I'm very confident in the next 5 years, we may also be in the top three countries in terms of monetization. And that would be a huge increase from where we are. So that's what we are very hopeful about, that that's the tailwind that's going to be behind us. And we really need to be able to ride it and succeed in the next few years.
Thanks, Nitish. Disha, you've just heard Nitish outline his plans. What's your take on the possible hurdles for the company as it goes down this path? And could you also talk about the kind of competition it faces, especially from, startups that have investors with very deep pockets?
I think Nazara has a blueprint ready. So it has built a backbone of companies which, can hold it in good stead going forward. As you said, Tencent is one global comparison that we can make. Even Zynga, for that matter, has built its business based on acquisitions only. My only concern is that, for most of its acquisitions work in subsegments within gaming, but these subsegments can be co-opted into other segments as well. For example, if we take Kidotopia, so this is gamified learning, but a company like an academy or Byju's, which is pure play edtech, could also have a company or a product which is similar to it. So, and they are both acquisition machines by themselves. So yeah, I think diversification makes sense because going forward, if there are new subsegments that come up, Nazara won't be taken off guard because they already have a foot in the door in most of those segments. But my only concern is that in each of these segments, Nazara does not have a pole position yet. I mean, it is a number two or a number third, but yet to achieve a market leadership position in any of those. For example, even Hala Play for that matter, Dream 11 has 70% market share already. So overthrowing them would be a challenge for Hala Play.
Nitish, would you like to respond to that?
I think while Disha has some valid points, so one thing I would like to correct is that in certain categories we are already market leaders. Esports is a very good example where we have over 90% market share in the Indian market. We are very strong in the Kiropia space. We are top five in the US today in that segment, and catching up very fast with the top three, I would say. In the World Cricket Championship is by far the most popular cricket game, not only in India but in the world. So in certain categories, we are operating as leaders. In certain categories like Hala Play, which is in fantasy sports, we are of course nowhere close to the market leader, and for reasons we already discussed earlier. But we still continue to operate there because we see in the potential. We will be able to find our own space within a very large, industry or large opportunity once things become clearer. So we will continue operating this strategy. And see how we can continue to drive market leadership in each category that we do. There will of course be competition in each vertical, so we are going to have a lot of competition. But also Nazara in its history of 20 years has always been extremely collaborative in its nature. We have partnered many times with the competition also. You could see it in Hala Play, we have Delta as a partner. You can see in Nodwin, you saw the recent partnership with Krafton come in as a South Korean gaming giant, owner of PUBG, who has invested. So we are also hopeful that we will continue to partner with the ecosystem, and the Friends of Nazara network that we are building will not only be limited to the companies we acquire, but also many competitors and many other types of partners who will come in and befriend us.
That sounds like an interesting strategy. We'll have to see how that plays out. But Nitish, before I let you go, could you please tell us how Shami Kapoor came to be involved in your first venture?
Sure. So I often joke with a lot of people, Shami Kapoor was 60 and I was 16 when we met for the first time and became great friends. He had this whole passion about the internet. He was the Yahoo man of India. And I was growing up in college those days. When we got to know, I actually invited him for a event in the college and got to know him. After that, I spent a lot of time at his home. I used to bunk college and go over to his home. He had these 5, 6 Macintoshes, so it was like a dream come true for me. And he went on to become my mentor for nearly 20 years till he passed away. Learned a lot of things from him, but the biggest thing was the unending source of positive energy that he had in him.
Amazing. Could you also tell us how the name Nazara came to be? Was that your idea? Was it your mom's, for instance?
It was my mom's idea. That time when we were starting off, we were a .com, creating a gaming website. And Nazara was a beautiful site, SIGHT. So it was kind of a pun over a website that we were creating. That's how Nazara really came about. And it's kind of stuck with us.
Great. It seemed to have served you well, definitely. Nitish, Disha, thank you so much for joining us in this discussion today. It's been great fun.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
You'll have to pardon me for stretching the pun, but a beautiful site is just what Nazara hopes it will be offering to its investors when it lists on the markets later this month. With its combination of diverse offerings and strategies of collaboration with competition, the company is keen to ride the tailwinds that are gathering force. For instance, a Deloitte report expects the online gaming industry in India alone to more than double to $2.8 billion by 2022. But remember that even here, there are challenges the company has to navigate, whether it's unpredictable regulations or cutthroat competition, not all of whom might want to collaborate. I hope you enjoyed the conversation today. You've been listening to the Morning Brief from the Economic Times, and I'm Indulekha Arvind. Today's episode was edited by Nehal Chaliawala and coordinated by Anjali Venugopalan. We'd love to hear what you think about the show, so do drop us a line at themorningbrief@timesgroup.com, and please share the episode on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. If you liked it, it would really help us. The Morning Brief airs every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Thank you for listening and have a great day.
Avaz.com